Samsung calls A31 a budget smartphone. I personally find it pretty hard to say that. On the one hand, it's not A01 that can get rid of smart in the word smartphone, but also doesn't reach the light of A71, a solid mid-class phone with many goodies, except of price. Welcome to Tech Fellas, my name is Bogdan, and today you'll find out how A31 feels in between those two. So we got it in red, and it looks just freaking awesome. The paint is not faded, on the back there is a pattern familiar from the other models of the series, as well as shimmering overflow. So what, it's plastic? Yes, it's gloss, but classic and at the same time not boring colors make A31 look really nice. I'm also happy about the fact that in the best traditions of budget class, the manufacturer doesn't leave customers embarrassed in the number of things. I speak about Type-C port, not a micro USB, and the headphone jack included in this body. You can set 2 SIM cards and the memory card at once in one card drawer. The screen in the device is not a top-notch, but other guys dare to install similar one in their pre-flagship smartphones, so we can all agree that the screen is wonderful by class standards. It is 6.4-inch Super AMOLED Full HD Plus with aspect ratio 20:9. When brightness is low, you see that PWM gets everything under control. In any case, you cannot enable DC dimming, cause there is no corresponding button in settings and nobody says that it will be fixed in the future. Speaking about the maximum brightness on the street, it is back-to-back enough to read in direct sunlight, but the point is you don't need to cover the screen with your hand. In addition to increasing the sensitivity of the sensor and simple color adjustment, there is also always on display, without which I'd immediately say that this phone is a piece of shit.
Just kidding!
On the sleeping screen, together with time and notification showdown, there is also a fingerprint icon, and you should already know what clip's coming next. The scanner copes nicely with its task, but we can't call it snappy, even taking the fact that it's optical here, it's not the best one. Also, people may not like the location of the sensor because it's shifted down. For me, that actually wasn't a big deal, but who knows what might cause a butt hurt from active viewers in comment section. Recognition by face works with front camera. Frankly, its speed can be described nothing but floating. Sometimes the smartphone acts like stupid, and sometimes vice versa. It works well and you don't even notice the lock screen. Moving on to hardware, the smartphone is built on MediaTek Helio P65, aka MT6768. This is a chipset with 8-core processor, 2 cores of which operate at the frequency of 2 GHz and remaining 6 at 1.7 GHz. Graphics is Mali G52. Model has 2 memory versions, 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, and 6 by 128 respectively. So to say, NFC is in this smartphone. In real life, these guys love to use everyday software with more or less comfort, only sometimes having small jams. Unlike what we had with the screen, this is definitely not near flagship hardware. Frankly speaking, it has no margin for efficient work in the far future and no guarantees of stable multitasking in a couple of months if you're gonna constantly stuff this smartphone with all kinds of software rubbish. Games run pretty fine here, but as for demanding one, it makes sense switching to medium or even low graphics. In World Tanks Blitz, for example, when playing on the top settings, the dream limit will be having 45 to 49 FPS, and 60 only when you just drive through the map before the start of the fight. In reality, you're gonna get floating 35 FPS with constant slowdowns and frame dropdowns to 20 in a close combat. After all these years, it's quite obvious that
with great power comes great
heating.
But such hardware as an A31 simply cannot produce much heat, and this is exactly the case when impossible remains impossible.
No, not exactly.
The smartphone can easily become warm, but it doesn't go any further, the temperature just remains noticeable. Nothing to worry about the battery life of A31. It comes with generous 5000 mAh battery that will make you forget about charging it for more than once in 2 days. Is it possible to discharge the smartphone faster? Probably, but a normal person who will not play World Tanks on the budget class phone till his heart rate is lost surely won't have problems with discharge. Now about cameras. The trends hit hard even in this market segment. Iconic rectangle with cameras is in here. More precisely, it has 4 lenses, but honestly we get to use only 2 of them. The first one is a standard wide-angle camera, the second is an ultra-wide cam, third is macro, and finally a depth sensor that was added because of, why not? All hail to the god of cameras. The macro unit is not particularly useful, it has fixated focus, so you have to physically move the phone in space to get crisp shot, and in general the scope of this camera is almost limited to shooting a bill or a flower. The ultra-wide one, although sees noticeably more space in front, but shoots at infinity, as in good old times. In my humble opinion, it is useful only when it's not possible to move a few steps back. The main camera takes photos with significantly more detail, but in general it's just a normal photo gun for daily conditions in good lighting, but no more than that. Photos come out relatively clear, dynamic range is not bad, but if you want something more, you should definitely pay extra for an older model. There is no night mode in the smartphone. If in pool lighting the main module is trying to squeeze at least something, then ultra-wide one only drops a shadow on this attempt. Maximum video quality is Full HD, there is no stabilization, and you can't switch between modules when shooting. I have nothing more to add. The front camera is not a deep crap, and not even partially. Overexposure is quite effectively eliminated, hair doesn't merge into a plastic go during the day, and even at night, all of a sudden the camera is basically able to take on something decent, and it will not look too lousy. The sound topic is perhaps my favorite one. Due to headphone jack, you can connect any headphones to the smartphone, that will give it a break unless the quality was lame, but it is good, so there is nothing to scold it for. A31 plays normally, in exactly the same way as most of its direct and not really competitors, without some prominent drawbacks or attempts of the manufacturer to make something different somehow that generally leads to screwing everything up. The speaker lives at the bottom and sadly sings alone. It turned out to be not too lousy, and its quality also doesn't catch stars from the sky. But as for direct tasks like using a speakerphone and notification sounds, its capabilities are enough. Look, A31 is not a bad smartphone, but its misfortune is that basically all its competitors give more for the same price, and I have a constant feeling that we've seen that before. No, not in the Reno 3 Pro that we had in previous review, exactly with Samsung in the past. On the other hand, if you don't want to deal with absence of Google services in fresh Huawei smartphones and just refuse to even touch in other China phones, the choice comes exactly to A31, that is ready to be accepted in your family. I will leave a couple of links to the internet stores where you can buy Galaxy A31 in the description box below, and if you like this video, then why not to support our channel by subscribing to it, hitting the like button and ringing the bell to stay tuned for more cool content. My thanks for watching, and cheers!